Okay, class, so we're going to be talking about deltas today, what deltas are in SAP BW. You've already covered how to create generic extractors, and what I'm showing over here is most of your generic extractors, you made them full. That means that you can only load full. You cannot just put in changes. So we're going to cover what deltas are and how to make your generic extractors delta enabled. Okay, so delta is nothing but, in simple words, I would say new records or changed records. So some people mistaken deltas to be only changed records or only new records, but it can be either or. Okay, so what exactly is meant by new records and what is meant by changed records? New record is as of history. So what exactly I mean by that is, let's say today you had a number of records in your data, contracted a number of transactions. Okay, so you did a transaction yesterday. You loaded that data yesterday, and then from yesterday, from whenever you loaded the data, you didn't stop your business. Your business was still running, right? So as of when you loaded last data, new records have come in because you contracted new transactions. You've had new transactions go on, or you've had records being entered into your system, right? So the changes that come in, and they aren't necessarily changes, because the change can be making a change to what is already existing, an already existing record. That is a change. When you say new record, that means that it's totally new. It's never been entered before. It has not been history. It wasn't there before, and it's coming in new. Okay, just like the word says. Change record is making changes to what has already been recorded or what has already been there. So in simple words, changing history. Okay, so all these can be termed as deltas. And there are different delta types, different delta mechanisms that transfer deltas differently. Okay, and we're going to be going into that today. But I'm going to start off with making one of your generic extractors delta enabled, so that you will be able to only load new records or change. The downside to not having an extractor enabled as delta or being delta enabled is you can only load in everything you have. You cannot just load in the new records that come in or just the changes that you do. Okay, so to make that clearer, what exactly I mean is, let's say, and let me pull up an Excel sheet.
All right, Eva, can you hear me?
Yes.
Why is Akin speaking? Akin, can you mute everybody? Mute everybody so that we don't have any noise here. All right, everyone is muted. Yeah, all right, Eva, go ahead.
So let's say we have an extractor, and these are the fields in the extractor. We have the customer ID, as usual, customer name, an amount, and then you have a quantity field. So as of yesterday, let's say 001. As of yesterday, Kofi with customer ID 01 bought computer for $500. Quantity was 1. Okay, so you loaded this data in yesterday. I'm going to mark it as yellow. So this data was loaded. Time of load.
Can we have the date of the transaction?
What was yesterday's day? Yesterday was the 8th. Okay, so this transaction happened yesterday, and you loaded that into your BW system yesterday. Let's just do yesterday. I'm not having good time. You loaded that yesterday, and then today you have new record come in. Okay, so, and guys, don't get confused. I'm still talking about, so let's use Bernard's extractor as an example. Okay, so this is Bernard's generic extractor he created. It is an ECC-based extractor. It's not a flat file, but I'm giving you an example of the kind of data Bernard had in an Excel sheet. Okay, so don't get confused. This is his extractor. He loaded that data in yesterday, okay, via a full load, because he didn't make his extractor generic Delta enabled. Okay, so yesterday, Bernard had this number of records, just this one line, just Kofi's transaction. He loaded that into BW yesterday. Today, he had another transaction coming, another customer 002, Equia, bought something today for, Equia probably bought a fridge for $1,000. Okay, and Bernard has been instructed by his manager to show to show every transaction that has happened, you know, as of now. So Bernard has already loaded this. Every transaction that has happened as far as these customers are concerned is Kofi and Equia. But Kofi is already gone into BW because Bernard loaded that yesterday. Okay, Equia bought something today, so new record is coming today. And Bernard is supposed to show a full picture of everything that is going on. So there are two options. Bernard can either just pull in Equia, and then it will just go add on to Kofi, and he will have everything that is available. Or if Bernard doesn't have the flexibility in just loading Equia's information, he has no choice but to load everything up again. So that is what full does. If your extractor is not Delta enabled and it can only do full load, what it means that it cannot take in just the new records that come in or the changes that you make. So your only option is to always load everything that is there, everything that is available. So in this case, Bernard's extractor can only pull in Kofi and Equia again. And you know what that means, right? That means that if you do not have your, you do not think carefully about your data modeling or your data flow or what target you choose to put in your data flow, you can have Kofi being duplicated. And we talked extensively about that the other week, about how to set your DSO to overwrite and all that. I'm not going to go into that, but as time goes on, all these will come together for you. So Bernard extractor being a full update extractor can only load everything that is. It cannot pull in just Equia. Okay, so let's assume that Kofi went back to the store, wherever he bought the computer, and then realized that he's been charged wrongly. Okay, so instead of the computer cost 300, but he was charged 500. So Kofi went back and they made a change. They had to input the corrections into their system. So they went back and changed this. Okay, so I'm going to record Kofi's transaction here again. So they made a change again. So the change happened today. Okay, so customer 001, because that is Kofi's customer ID. And then the change came on transaction date. The day he transacted the thing will still be the same date, 3/8/2013. Because he's not transacting anything new. It happened yesterday. And then it's going to be computer. But there's going to be yet another field, okay, which can be changed on date. So this will now be populated in the first transaction Kofi did because nothing was changed. But whoever entered Kofi's change will have to record a new change on date because it's changed. So the new change on date is going to be today's date, which is going to be March 9th, 2013. And then the new amount is going to be $300. And quantity is going to be 1. Okay. So even though this is not a new transaction that has come on, it is considered delta because it's a change to an already existing transaction. Okay, so it still records it as delta. So if you want to just capture this change into BW, and unfortunately your extractor has now been set up to just capture the change, that means that you have to load everything again, just like I explained earlier on. Okay, this looks simple because it's just one record. You can afford to load everything again and it will not impact time. It will not impact your timeline significantly. But in real life scenarios, you will not just have one transactions coming in. Let's assume that you're a company, okay, and you've been transacting business for 20 years. Okay, so that means that since the onset of your business up to now, 20 years, you're going to have 20 years of data, 20 years of data volume. That can be a lot. That can be millions of records. Okay, let me show you. And this is Pentacle system. We don't, do transactions daily, so you will not see much data. But let me go into the view that Bernard did, and then we're going to go into one of the underlying tables, and you see the number of records that is in there. Or just to make it simple, I think he used Mara and Mark. I'm just going to go into table Mara. Okay, so Bernard is combining table Mara and table Mark. So I'm going to check the number of entries in Mara alone. So I'm doing this so you can appreciate the essence of deltas or why deltas are very significant. So in Mara alone, we have about 15,000 records, 15,341. That is the number of records in there. Okay. So let's say that Bernard's extractor is pulling in about 15,000 records. And he made a change to just one record. Okay, he made a change to just one record. And he wants to be able to just capture just that change. But Bernard will not be able to capture just that change. And just that change is just one record. So loading 15,000 records versus just loading one record, it makes sense that just the one record will come in faster versus the 15,000. 15,000 records can take minutes. It can take hours. It can take long. One record. So the more the records, the longer it takes. Okay, so if Bernard, as far as design is concerned, or as far as performance is concerned, or how quickly you want to get your loads in, it makes more sense to not just load everything, but just load just the new change that came in. Because everything else is already gone into BWA already. Why do you want to load everything up again? It doesn't make sense. So that is what I'm explaining here. This is just one record, so it will not, you won't appreciate the essence of deltas so much in this example. But just assume that the history, okay, whatever transactions came in before the change were 15,000 records. And then you made a change to just one record. You want to just capture just one record instead of capturing the 15,001 records all over again. Okay, so that is why it makes sense to use deltas if your extractor is delta enabled, or to make your extractor delta enabled if it is an extractor that will pull in so much data that, you know, its underlying table has huge volume of data. It just makes sense that way. Okay, so we are going to go into Bernard's extractor and then kind of change it up a little bit, tweak it to be able to pull in deltas. Okay, and how do you know?
All right, Ceci, you there?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Today I'm a student, so I have a question.
Yes,
can you pull the PowerPoint quickly? Let's see if there is any delta over there, so I can add a few comments before you continue. Keep going.
You know what slide exactly it is?
Okay. 46.
Okay.
All right. So just a little comment. So basically, what we're saying is, or what Eva is saying is not me. What Eva is saying is that you have records you have been buying, and these records go into ECC, and these records sit in tables, and your data sources are responsible to what? Be the structure that guides, or the vehicle that allows this data to flow into BW. So if the number of records that you have in ECC, for example, for a particular data source or for a particular data, you look, say for example, products. Let's say you have 2,000 products inside of ECC, but then you've loaded all the 2,000 products into ECC. But then tomorrow they add 5 more products in there. If you want to be able to add to what you already have in BW because you already loaded the 2,000 previously, you need to be able to have a mechanism that allows you to do that so that you can only pull the 5 records. Eva, are we on the same track here?
Yes, we are.
Okay. So that's basically what you're saying. So that makes sense, right? That makes sense. This stuff here, Eva didn't create that. So if you look at it, ECC as of July 23rd, 2011, at 11:53 a.m., you had 30 records. Okay, you had 30 records. As of July 24th, 2011, by 7 a.m., you have 70 new records. So my question is, how many records total would you have in that ECC table? Can anybody tell me? Okay. Okay.
To class, let them answer that.
All right. So sis, do you agree with them with what they're saying? That it's going to be 100 or 70?
Yes.
Okay. So what you're saying is perfectly right. So the first records that you sent in there was 30, but then you had 70 new records that actually did what? Came and then it got what? Added to the 30 that you have. So don't you think that in that case, what type of delta are we dealing with? in that situation. We're talking of addition only here, right? So sis, this is a question to you. Is it possible that out of these 70 new records, some of the records were actually changed records? So let's say that 30 of these new records that came were actually changed records. They are new because, you know, they are just with the way that you explained it, right? Somebody went to buy and then there was a change. So yes, 70 new records came in all right, but out of the 70, there were 30 out of the 70 that were actually changed records. So after you've done your load into BW, how many records are you going to have totally? Sis, am I making sense?
Yes.
All right. Well,
Was there a question to me?
no, not really. I just want to see if you know, you get where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
From the perspective of we understood that it was 100. All right, that's fine. So I'm just throwing into your class that what if the 70 new records, out of the 70 new records, let's say not 30 anymore, but 25. Let's say that 25 out of the 70 new records, right?
Yeah.
Were actually changes. So if those were changes, what is going to happen? How many records total are you actually going to have?
Yeah, so guys, answer that. Okay, I'm getting different answers over here. That is easy, right? That should be easy. So Evans is saying that initially you have 30 records. Okay, you got 70 new records coming in. But out of that 70 records, 40 of them were change records.
Let's say 25. We said 25, right? Let's keep it constant.
Oh, we said 25. Okay.
Yeah.
So 25 out of the 70 were new records. So what do you think?
No, they were change records, right?
Were changed.
So we are saying that 70 new records came in, but the 25 out of the 70 actually were change records. So it means that those records were there initially, that the quantity or the amount that they bought it for wasn't correct. They went to the store to go and change it.
Yes. So 75 Bernard says, okay, we are getting different answers. That means everybody understands it differently.
Exactly.
Okay, guys, let me break it down for you because this is very easy. Okay, so initially you had 30 records. Let me just, okay, look at this Excel sheet. Maybe that will help you. Initially we had one record. Okay, the top one, the yellow highlighted one. And then after yesterday, Equia made another transaction. So we had 2 records. And then today again, Kofi came back to change whatever he bought yesterday. So it triggered a new record. Okay, but it's actually not a new transaction. So how many, in your database, how many records, true records would you have, do you think? 2 distinct records or real transactions?
They can't see your screen. They can't see your Excel sheet, sis.
Oh, I am sorry. I think I paused it. Okay. So let me go back again. So yesterday, Kofi bought something. Okay, that is what is in the yellow highlights. Today, Equia came to buy something. And then today again, Kofi came back to make changes to what he bought yesterday. So what do you think will happen in the true database, in the true table? What will be the number of true transactions that have really happened? Or in other words, how much money do you think the company has really made? What will be the true amount? Is it going to be 500 plus 1,000 plus 300? Bernard, you said 1,300. It depends on info provider. That is true. But what is the true value? I'm not talking about the number of records that will go into BW. I'm talking about what should be the true state of the company's financial. Come on, guys. Okay, you're not getting me. Let me say that again. So yesterday, Kofi bought something for $500. Okay. Today, Equia bought some. So the company made $500 yesterday. Today, Equia came to buy something for $1,000. So that means that as of the time Equia bought something, company is made $1,500. Okay. Right after Equia bought something, the true state of the company's financials is $1,500. Kofi came back and reported, a discrepancy in his receipt. Instead of being charged $300, he was charged $500. So they made the corrections and then reimbursed Kofi $200 back. So what is the true state? And the reason some of you are giving right answers, which is true. Some of you are giving wrong answers. So, okay, I'm getting 1,300. Okay, so now you're all saying 1,300, which makes sense, right? So it is 1,300 because you cannot add 500 to 1,000 to 300. That is like you're escalating your figures. So the true state of the company's financials is the 1,000 which Equia bought, and then the true transaction Kofi did, which is the 300. So in effect, you only have two records. Okay, so apply the same logic to Evans's question and tell me what the number of records will be. Okay, Vera says 75. Any other answer? 45 new plus 30 existing, Anna says, which is true. Okay, so I think you get it. That is right. Oh, there were so many answers underneath, I didn't see. Okay, so Evans, are you satisfied? They gave you your answer. Evans. Okay, so you're asking why is it 75? Okay, initially it was 30 records. Okay, and then 70 new records came in. But out of the 70 new records that came in, 25 of them were actually already existing records. They were part of the 30 that got changed. Do you get it up to this point? Okay. So what really happens, and I think this will be, this might probably be where the confusion is coming from. So what really happens in the real database is that even though this triggered a new record, in the real database, and what goes on in the background, right, in the true database is that this new record will go overwrite this. So in the true database, you will not see two records for Kofi. It will just be one. It just triggers another record because if it does not do this, that means that whatever you might have loaded already, if you're picking just deltas, you won't have anything to go update it. That is why it triggers a new record just for your delta loads. But at the background in the true database, it just goes and overrides this, the Kofi, and then replaces the 500 with 300. Okay, that is what happens. And then let me see if I can try to be a hero and try to create a material. Okay, and then I believe in visualization. If you can visualize something, it will make more sense. So we've seen that Mara has 15,000 records, 15,341. Okay, so let's go. I'm not sure if Bernard loaded that data yet. Let's get into BW and then load that, and let's see the number of records that will come in. And I'll try to create a new material, and then we'll see how the changes come. Okay. So Bernard loaded data. Let's see how many records he pulled. He'll probably now have all the 15,000 because he didn't pull in all the fields. So he has, this is 20,000 plus 3,000, 23,000. And it could be coming from Mark as well because he merged two tables together. I was going to go ahead and create a material and then we'll see how the changes come in. But we can do that in one of the Tuesday classes because we want to finish deltas and move on to a new topic quickly. So I'm going to go back to Bernard's extractor and then make that delta enabled. So how do you make an extractor delta enabled? You still come to RSO2. And then you want to make a change to it. So this time I'm not going to do create or display or anything because it's already existing. I don't need to recreate it. And I don't want to display it. I want to make changes to it. So I'm going to hit change. And then over here, you click this icon over here that says generic delta. Okay, so you click it. And then when you click it, there are so many options in defining your delta. Okay, so you see over here, it says that field name. Usually, almost all the time, you have to put in a field. There has to be something that will determine when deltas should start recording, right? And think of this as a bookmarker. You know how, most of you that are into reading storybooks, you know how when you're reading and you get to a certain page, you put in a marker in the book so that you can pick on from wherever you stopped later on. Okay, instead of having to flip through all the pages to actually know where you left off. It will be quicker if you can just put in a bookmarker, and tomorrow when you come, you know that, okay, you finish this chapter and you just move on to the next chapter. So that's a bookmarker. So you want to set a bookmark or a timestamp. In lay terms, you'd say a bookmark. In SAP terms, you want to set up a timestamp, or you want to set up a field that will trigger or that will set the indicator for you that as of today, everything that was before today is history, and everything that is of today, from today, is new. When I come back to my Excel sheet, it makes sense that if you're looking at this record, right, versus the yellow one versus these two, and let me mark them as red. Okay, when you look at the yellow one, and then you look at the red ones, it just makes sense. Clearly, you can tell, even if you are not an SAP expert, you can tell that once you have a change date, this tells you that it was changed. Okay, because this says change on date. If a data or a date entry has been populated into the change on date field, it just makes sense. I mean, you can easily translate that as the day on which the change happened. It makes sense, right? So if this is when the change happened and it says today, then you know that it came in today. It is new. Okay, let me take it again because I know it may be fussy a little bit. So what I'm saying is that there are certain fields that easily help you to know when a new record came in. For instance, if I choose this field, customer name, will customer name, is it a good indicator to tell me when a change has occurred or when a new record is coming? It is not. Customer name will always be Kofi. I mean, what does that tell me? Somebody can just read this. Okay, Kofi is Kofi. Kofi doesn't mean that it came in today. So there's Kofi here too. There is Kofi here too. In the yellow highlight, and there's another Kofi. If you see two Kofis, it doesn't tell me that this is new and this is old. No. What clearly distinguishes this yellow one from this red one is the change on date, because that is the only thing that has difference in the entry. Yes, amount also has difference in the entry. The amount on by itself will not make sense. Okay, so the change on date is what tells you that this entire line has been tampered with. It's been changed. And we already know that we've already established that delta is changes or new records that come in. Okay, and if there are other fields too, but you just have to understand your data and understand the fields in the underlying table to know which one exactly will make more sense to use that as a bookmark or as a timestamp. Okay, most often than not, it's going to be changed on date if you're doing deltas, because new records will automatically come in anyway as deltas. Okay, so I cannot put in any field over here because I don't know what field Bernard is defined in his view. If he doesn't have changed on date in his view, I will not be able to use that as the delta specific field. I will not be able to use that. Whatever field you decide to use to trigger your deltas for you has to be in your view, or it has to be in your table. Okay, so somebody is asking a question that if manager wants to see change records in terms of new or change records, how to check that? So change on date will also go in, right? So you know that that particular record is changed. Unless the question is not clear. Can you unmute yourself and ask the question? You're still muted. Kofi, can you unmute her, please?
Okay, Eva. My question is, it's the same on the same screen. You're talking about the field name when you mention about delta. It's the same field manager will use if, later on go check in the system what has been changed, say tomorrow or today. Today or yesterday. They use the same field to check the records has been changed or is something else?
So usually what managers are concerned about is they just want true picture of how the company is doing. And it makes sense, right? If you were a manager, you would want to know what they don't really bother too much about so many things. But if they just want changes, yes, there's a way to just load in changes and present it to them. Okay, but typically managers will just want to see how their company is doing and the true state of transactions that has happened. So let's say that this happened, but it wasn't, it was changed. Kofi went back and then reported a discrepancy and they changed it. So the true state of the transaction is this red one over here, the 300, not the 500. Let me go back to what it was before, not the 500. So what manager will really be interested in is the 300. He doesn't even want to see 500 and 300 to know that, okay, this happened and then it was changed. So usually in BW, when you load the changes, depending on how you have set up your data flow and you set up your keys right and everything, it will go and overwrite. Okay, so this change over here will go and override this. So it's not going to be 500 anymore, it's going to be 300. And then the manager will see that. And we'll talk about it, depending on what delta mechanism it is. And remember last week when I was saying, going over the deltas, I was saying that sometimes, depending on what delta mechanism your extractor is doing, it sends changes differently. Some delta mechanisms will send two records for changes. Meaning that first, for the same Kofi's line, it will first send this. Let me actually take off the red highlight. It will first of all send in the original amounts before the dispute, which is 500, but it will place a negative indicator in front of it. Okay, we'll put a minus sign in front of it, indicating that it should go and, erase whatever has been loaded before to contradict what it was before. And then it will put in another record again with the correct amount, which is the 500. So you're going to have the same ID again. And why is this? Did I put in a formula? So you're going to have Kofi is going to be 1 again. Kofi, the same change date. So some delta mechanism will send the stuff like this. Okay, over here is going to be negative 500. And then this is going to be the correct state of the amount, which is 300. Okay, some delta mechanisms will do 2 postings. Some will just do just 1 with the change. Okay, but either way, finally in BW, whether it's this 2 records or it's this, at the end of the day, what you're going to have in the report is going to be the true state, which is the 300. And that is what the manager is going to see, because that is a true state of transaction that Kofi did. Can, is that okay? Okay. Sometimes, depending on how ECC is set up, there will be a custom table that will only send in changes. So when a change is done, it will send in just the changes that has been done into another table. If you want to track history and see changes that has happened or the reasons for the changes, you can just, just load that data into BW, and then the manager can just see just the changes. So in that report, it's just going to be changes. Yes. So in the report, you're going to have this line, just this one line. And then it's going to record the change on date. But remember that amount is going to be 300. So you know that this, if it has a change on date, then that means that it was changed. But you will not show all the 2 amounts, all the 2 records showing that it was initially 500 and then it's been changed to 300. Okay, that is what typically happens. But if manager wants to see just changes, it is possible to show him changes that has happened. Is it clear? Adewale? Okay. All right, so we're going to go into Bernard's view and see what kind of fields he defined his view with, and let's see which of the fields will make sense to use as delta. So Bernard has material number, maintenance status, material type, material group, old material number, transportation group, MRP type, plant, this. Okay, I don't see any field that makes sense to use as delta. Because think about it, material number. I mean, the fact that material number, something changed in material number does not tell me that it's a true change. It's not a date field, so it doesn't make too much sense. We can go back into his view and try to pull in more fields into his view so that we can use a field that is contained in here. Or we can just create one from scratch. Yes, Roxanne. So basically the change on date will signify that there's been a change. Yes, it makes sense, right? That will signify that there's been a change. There's been a change. So when you're doing the generic delta, you want to use that as a reference. So you put a field in here. And again, Bernard doesn't have it. So if I put it in here, it will trigger an error. let me find another, or you know what, let's go, we are going to go into Bernard's view and try to pull in a date field, and then we'll use that to create a generic extractor. Okay, when you guys get this, don't panic, okay? So what happens is there's something called developer access key. Okay, you need that before you will be able to make changes to already existing records. I don't have an access key. Evans, if you're there, you have one, can you just put it in the chat for me? If not to waste time, let's just go create a new one and then pull in a change on date, and then you would see. So I'm going to create a view, and I'm going to call it the.
Hey Eva, can you change Kofi? Can you give her an ID that has developer access key?
I was using instructor.
Yeah, I don't have that. So Kofi can give you one that's just use the one that the class uses. You can use that to log in. I haven't created one for instructor yet.
Okay, Kofi, can you put in the chat for me? Okay, Kofi, I don't get it. Is that user and password, or they are different users?
Group A is the user and then backend is the password.
Okay. What a name. So this is Bernard's view. So when I come into the view tables, I'm going to go into Mara, and there should be a change on date over here. So help me find it. Okay, I don't show change on date, but just so we can know how to create it. And then you get all these, what field is the right field to use. You will get it eventually. So just so we go through the process of making something a Delta enabled, I'm going to put in the created on date, and I'm going to use the created on date, as the field to trigger the deltas. Okay, so I'm just going to copy that, and I have it created on
Eva,
date.
I think they saw it. They saw the change there.
There's a change on date over there?
Yeah, I think so.
I didn't see. Where?
I think date of last change. The fifth one.
Date of last change. Thank you. Okay, so this is the change on date. Okay, so I'm going to put that into, and I'm going to reactivate this. Oh, Elinam saw that. Thanks, Elinam. Oh, Ikuya saw that too. I wasn't paying attention to the chat. It says warnings okay. Warnings are okay. So you can choose to ignore them. Not all the time though. Okay, so our view has been reactivated. We're going to go back to RSO2 and then make it Delta enabled. Okay. It was this. Okay. All right, so again, in making a generic data source Delta enabled, after you're done creating it, you click on this icon here that says generic Delta. And then in here, we're going to put in the changed on date. Oh my goodness, I didn't even remember. Anybody remember the field name? Let's go back and get it. Yeah, it will be right here.
If I think somebody typed in the chat.
So date of last change is the LAEDA. Okay. And then guys, I want you to read on these, okay? Thank God for F1 help. So anytime you want to, you see how there are so many options over here, you put in the field name, and then there are different options here too, right? You can choose to click on timestamp, and timestamp UTC, you have two timestamps, right? One says UTC, one says local, the other says calendar day, and then the other says numeric pointer. And then there are other settings here that says safety interval, upper limit, safety interval, lower limit, real-time enabling, new status for change records, and then additive delta. Do you know how you can find information on all of them? Just click any of them and then do F1. And there are tons of information out there. Okay, that is how to learn. Because truth is, you will barely even use this on the job. Or even if you will, you'll probably be just one option throughout your entire project life. You know, but if you haven't used it before, then you wouldn't know what the others do, right? But if you read on them, you will know. So come in here, click on every option, and then do F1. Just type in F1, and you get all information that there is so then you can read on. So the type of delta relevant field says that there are three options for the type of the field determining the delta in a data source. One is timestamp. Okay, so what does it? It says that the field is a decimal 15 field, which always contains the timestamp of the last change to a record in the local time format. In the local time format. Second one says that the calendar day is, this field is a .S8 field, which always contains the day of the last change. Numerical pointer says that the field contains another numerical pointer that appears with each new record. Okay, so what do all these mean? It's simple. What it means is that timestamp says that you can, if you want to choose a timestamp, you cannot just use any field. You know how fields have different data types? Right, so if it's a timestamp, the data type has to be this. So if the change on day is, it has a different data type. Let's say the data type is character or character string or whatever. You will not be able to use timestamp for that. So it is a prerequisite. So the field is this field, a decimal 15 field, which always contains the timestamp of the last change to a record in the local time format. So it looks at your local time. Okay, so yes, so your local time on your system, you know, is set to central time. So it looks to that time, and then it knows whenever the last record went in or whenever the new record came in. It records all that against the system time. Calendar day says that the field is this. So when you're using a calendar day, it has to be this data type. And then the numerical pointer just says the field contains another numerical pointer that appears with each new record. Okay, it's just a pointer. So over here, you have the options. You can choose whatever you want, depending on your understanding of what each one does. What does the numerical pointer look like? We'll talk about that. Okay, so over here, I am going to do calendar day. Okay, and they are all options you can use. I'm just going to choose calendar day. And over here again, in the safety interval time, I will rather talk about this when we're talking about logistics. But certain, certain type of data are very delicate in nature, and you need extra handling when dealing with them. Because what these safety intervals do is that when you set them right, it makes sure that you will not, it makes sure that whatever changes come in, you will for sure capture it. You will not miss anything at all. So usually you set up limits. Okay, you can indicate that the upper limit to be 4 minutes or whatever. And what happens is that it records everything that happened depending on whatever time limit you set, that time amount or time frame prior to the change. And then the upper one will also give you the time frame after the change happens. So it gives you that range from way before the change happened and way after the change happened. And again, I know this is very fast because this is a very complex topic. Okay, so let me now let's just create a simple generic delta, and then we'll come back into these details when we get to logistics. So don't worry about all these. Just put in anything that will make sense to trigger a change for you as a field name. Put it over here, and then over here you can set whatever. When you do the timestamp, it uses the system, the universal, the UTC means the universal time. So you use the universal timestamp. This uses your local time set on your local machine. Calendar day will use, of course, the calendar day, right? So if today is when the change comes in, it's using the regular calendar day to store the changes for you. And the numerical pointer will do the numerical pointer. We'll talk about all these in addition to the safety intervals because they are complex. We'll treat them as a whole new topic. And over here you have an option in doing new status for record changes or additive delta. Okay, so you can choose either way. And then again, you can just do F1 on either of them, and then you can read on them. So quickly, let's read it. It says that safety interval lower limit. Why is this giving safety interval? I didn't check in here. I'm going to check in here. So when you don't check in the right box, it will give you, something totally different. It says that the system uses the delta type to determine how extracted data is to be interpreted in BW and into which data target it can be posted. A distinction is made between the following. Additive delta, what is it? It says that the key figures for extracted data are added up in BW, and it makes sense, right? That is why it's additive. Are added up in BW. Data sources with this delta type can supply data to ODS objects and info cubes. That means that when you choose additive, you can get it into an ODS, and you can also load into a cube straight away. New status for change records. It says that each record to be loaded delivers the new status for the key figures and characteristics. Data sources with this delta type can write to ODS objects or master data tables. So if you're using the new status, you cannot get it into a cube straight away. You will have wrong figures if you get this into a cube directly. And that's exactly what I was telling you over here. So if your delta mechanism is giving the new status only, okay, so it gives you this. So if you change something, then you just get this, which is the 300, right? It was 300 before. And then remember that you've already loaded 500. And then you get this in again. It's going to be 500 because that is what a cube does. The cube cannot override. It's going to be 800. It's going to add up. It's going to sum up because that is what a cube does. It only does additive. So you're going to get 800. So loading this, if you choose the new status only and you get it into a cube straight away, no DSO between, it's going to be a big issue and you can get fired for that. Okay, so spend some time over here and take your time, do it very slowly. Click on F1, click on any of them, and then, just press the F1 key on your keyboard. And then take your time and read it and understand it very well. And like I said, this is just the first touch at it. We'll come back to this later as we go on. Okay, so let me just keep it as simple as it is. Put a field name here, not any field, a field that makes sense to trigger changes for you. Put it over here. You can choose calendar day or whatever suits you over here. And then if you want additive delta, just know that you can go into a DSO or a cube. It's your choice, into a cube directly. It can be an issue. So I'm just going to do new status, okay, because we have a DSO. I'm going to do save, and then you do save here again. And then you are all set. And then notice the difference. Before I replicate this into BW again, before, Bernard only had the option for full. Right, this was the only thing that was showing under update mode. We're going to replicate the generic data source again, then let's see if we will be able to get different options, a delta option. So we're going to save this over here again, then we are done. So we are done making it delta enabled. How do you tell it's delta enabled? You go into RSA6, and then it should be able to tell you over there. Ken, I'm trying to read your question. I'm trying to understand what you're saying. So you're saying that it depends on the field name to select timestamp calendar day. Yes, it depends on the field name. Yes, you have to put in the field name. So if this checkbox, this delta update in here is grayed out, but if you see the check mark, it means that it's delta enabled. Okay, I'm going to go into one of your generic extractors that is not, that is full, and you see the difference. So I'm going to go into the one directly beneath it, and you see the delta update checkbox doesn't have, the checkbox doesn't have any check mark in it. Okay, so that means that this is only full. I'm going to come into BW. Okay, system kick me out. We're going to replicate the extractor. And Ken, again to your answer, they keep, SAP keeps bringing, enhancement packs. And what enhancement packs do is they bring in new functionalities. They add on new functionalities because, previously there would be, let's say, in previous versions, you would not be able to create generic extractor or make it delta enabled if you do not put in a field name. It could be that it's changed. So how do you test it? It's just by practicing it, right? So I'll come back after we've replicated it, and then we'll try to just choose a calendar day or anything and not put in any field, and let's see if the system will let us do that. If it does, then that means that you don't need a field. You can just choose any of the options. Okay, so how do you replicate? There are so many ways of replicating extractors, right? I'm sure Evans has taught you that you can stand on the object itself and replicate it, or you can go to a transaction called RSDS to replicate it if it's not already replicated and you just want to replicate just one. So let me make sure it's the same. Is that the same extractor? If I do not do the replication, that means that I will not have the current state of the extractor, right? So I want to replicate it so that the new features will show, the new metadata will show. So just understand that in real life, you know, usually if the underlying table on the generic extractor is not so, you know, it's not a huge table and changes, you know, it barely even has changes, you can afford to just leave it at full load. But if it has tons of data in it and it's a huge table, you're talking about millions of records, you cannot afford to leave it full. That means that every day you have to load, you know, millions of records, and that would heavily impact the system. If you've already loaded that, why do you want to keep loading all over again? It doesn't make sense. That is why deltas come in handy. Okay, I'm going to go into this info package again, and then let's see if we get other options. And the update. So you see that it wasn't just full update. Initially, it was just full update, but we got another option. Okay, and it says initialize delta process. You will now be, so there are three, you see three different update modes. There is a full update, initialization, and then there is a delta update. Usually you will only get the third option, which is a delta, after you have done the initialization. Okay, so after you've done initialization, then you will be able to create another info package with the delta option. And remember that they are all different info packages. You don't switch them around. You can choose to switch them around, but it doesn't make sense to do that. So I'm not going to tamper with Bernard's info package. I'm going to create another info package. And know that you can create so many info packages on one data source. Okay, so let me make sure that I didn't tamper with Bernard's. So Bernard's is still at full. Okay, I'm going to create another info package. And I'm going to call it initialize. I'm not sure if Evans has covered this with you, but can somebody tell me what initialization is? Let me see how much he knows so I'll know how in-depth I can go on this. Starting point. Okay. Init means you're enabling the other. I think I would love to hear your voices. Kofi, can you unmute them, please? Or no, yes, unmute them. And you guys, make sure there's no noise in your background. Class is too silent. I would love to hear some voices. Class is too silent. I would love to hear it. Okay, guys, Kofi's unmuted you. Can you mute yourselves back? Okay, guys, I don't want to mute you. Mute yourself back if you're not saying anything yet, and just unmute yourself if you want to talk. Okay. Okay, Kriya, can you unmute yourself and tell us what delta is? I mean, what initialization is?
Well, yeah, I said starting point as in you're initializing something. So from that point onwards, it should the changes should take effect as to whatever you're initializing.
Okay. Okay, I can take that. I can take that. Any other?
I mean, just layman terms, that's my understanding. Just, you know, the way I understand, like you're initializing something, so from that starting point of, you know, whatever you're initializing, whatever changes that you expect to see should happen.
Okay, the reason I said I can take that is you're right, but it can be a little misleading because when you initialize, so doesn't mean that if you don't do initialization, so right now it's on full, doesn't mean that if there are transactions, there are changes occurring in ECC, they will not be captured.
They will be captured, but everything will be captured, and that's not the step you want to take. You want to capture only the new, only the changed records.
Okay.
Or new records.
Okay, I think.
Instead of everything.
Okay.
Right, okay, I think you misunderstood my question. Let me clarify that. So,
okay, initialize, I think you're initializing delta Q.
Delta Q, that is right. That was the answer I was looking for. Who just spoke?
Yunus, Khan.
Khan, okay, good. So if here, I know you know the answer, but the way you said it can be a little misleading. Okay, so initialization is a starting point. That is great. Okay, but starting point of what? Because I can read that if I was a lay person and you said that to me, I would assume that what you actually mean is when you do initialization in BW, then that is when the changes will start happening in ECC. But that is not it. Changes will happen whether you've initialized in BW or not. Changes will happen. I mean, you can't stop business from making changes to transactions. If, let's say, you're a BW person and business are running their business, and Kofi went to Walmart and told them that they made a mistake in the entry in charging him, they will capture that the changes, right? They will record it. Whether you have done initialization in BW or not, they will be doing their work in BW. So some way, somehow, deltas will be recorded. So what exactly is initialization in BW? Does it mean that is, you have to do that before Kofi can go and report a change, or before this, the sales guys can record the change? Is that what really is? Is that what it really means? No. Okay, do you get where I'm coming from? Okay. So when you initialize in BW, you didn't initialization. All that it means is that, without initialization, you cannot be able to pull in your deltas. Deltas will happen whether you do initialization or not in ECC. But when you initialize in BW, you set up your delta Q, like cancer. And delta Q is the RSA7. I'll go and show you. So right now, let me show you RSA7 in ECC right now. So this is RSA7. It's called delta Q. Okay, any data source that is initialized will show up over here. And if I scroll down, you'll see that you will not see CAN's data source over here because it's not been initialized. What is the essence of this? What is the essence of the delta Q? What delta Q does for you is that it holds your deltas as temporary storage areas prior to loading it into BW. Okay, prior to loading into BW. So, because you're going to make a change. When they do the change, they will record a change. Okay, and it's supposed to be held over here temporarily until you schedule the load to go into BW. That is what it would do. So what initialization does is it just creates that bucket for you, that temporary storage place for you so that your deltas can be held over there. What happens if you don't initialize? What happens if you don't initialize is that there is no placeholder for the changes for you. It doesn't mean that the changes will not happen. Changes will happen, but if you don't have a placeholder, that means that they will get lost. You will not be able to capture them. That is why initialization is very, very important. They will be captured under the main database. They will be lost in RSA7. Okay, but it doesn't mean that they will be lost totally in the system. And let me come over here and attempt to draw something for you so that it will probably make more sense. And pay attention over here because this topic will come in handy when I start covering logistics. Okay, so there are so many tables in ECC. Let's call this table of origin into brackets TOB. And then this is the delta Q. And so let's say that Ikea is the salesperson, okay? So this is the application Ikea logs into input data in the SAP system. So Kofi went to buy something. So let me pull back the Excel sheet. So initially, I'm on the yellow highlights. You remember when we were saying Kofi went to buy something yesterday, right? So let's say Kriya was a salesperson. Kofi went to buy something yesterday. Kriya entered the record in her application, okay, in her screen. Where the data goes to, the first place the data hits is this table here, which is called the table of origin. So let's say Kofi was, whatever Kriya was entering was material related. That information goes into the Mara table. So it comes in here to this table of origin. Kofi went back and reported to Ikea that, she didn't charge him right. Instead of 300, they charged him 500. So Ikea made the change. Guess what happens when Ikea records the change? When Ikea records the change comes to the table of origin and then to the delta Q in parallel. Okay, it comes here and then it comes here too. So in RSA7, you have only the changes. The changes only come to RSA7. The deltas only come to RSA7. Okay. So if for some reason you had not initialized data, okay, you have initialized data and postings come over here, or something happens. Let's say you've even initialized data, and for some reason records get lost in RSA 7. Because the records are still captured over here in the table of origin, you will still be able to have that data. You can, but that means that you can only get it via full load or initialization. You cannot get it through Delta, and I will explain that. Because when you do Delta, the only place it picks up from is RSA 7. Let me go back to the initialization thing, BW again. So we've already checked here, right? We don't see count extract over here. It's not here because we haven't done initialization yet. I'm going to go into BW, and then I'm going to do initialize delta process. So when you do initialize delta process, what it does is it just creates that storage place, that temporary holding place, that placeholder in RSA 7 for you to hold your changes that come in, to hold your deltas for you. Okay, but what kind of data does it really load? So in here, in Delta, in the initialize data process, you have two options. You can choose to initialize with data transfer or initialize without data transfer. Okay, when you initialize with data transfer or without data transfer, it doesn't matter. It will still create that placeholder in RSA 7 for you. Whether with data transfer or without data transfer, it will do that for you. Okay, when you do initialize delta process with data transfer, the table it accesses to pick your data for you is a table of origin. And remember that the kind of data your table of origin will have will always be history, right? This is what captures your deltas for you, RSA 7. Your deltas for you. When you do full load picks up from table of origin, meaning that it picks history for you. So both full load and initialization will pick data up from your table of origin for you. Okay, this is the table it accesses to pick up your data. The difference between full load and initialization, besides the difference between the full load and initialization is that initialization will set the placeholder in RSA 7 for you. Full load will not do that for you. Initialization will actually enable you to create your delta info package, because for you to be able to load your deltas from RSA 7, you need another info package called delta. Without initialization, you will not be able to create your delta info package. Okay, and I will repeat myself again so that it gets clearer. So, but let's go initialize. I'm going to do initialization with data transfer. And I'm going to schedule it. And immediately I schedule it, it's going to show up in RSA 7 as a placeholder. So you realize that the full load Bernard did before had a number of entries, right? I'm doing initialization right now. It's going to bring up some number of entries, but it makes sense to pull the same number of entries Bernard pulled in, because I said it was pulling from the same table. And it should be the same number of entries right now, because we know that no new data is not been added to the table. Okay, so it says data requested. Let's do it manage and Evan, so system is very slow today. Anyway, so let's leave it to run. And whilst it's running, I'm going to flip to RSA7. And it should show up there by now. Sometimes you have to wait for it to finish executing. I'm still not showing it over. I'm going to do refresh. And then scroll through. Let's see. That's it, right? Okay, so you see it showed up over here. It's yellow because it's not finished running. It's still running. So it showed up over here. So what this means is that you've actually set a placeholder for the new changes to be stored in. Okay, so that when you want to just pull in new, just the new records, it will just come over here and just, populate it for you. Instead of having to go into the underlining table again, which is a table of origin, to pick everything up. Because when you come over here, you are pulling full load. You are pulling everything that is. So if you have 20 million records over here, it will pull all the 20 million records for you again. But over here, since you only did a change to one record, the true delta would just be one record. So if you pick the changes from RSA7, it will be faster because it will just be one record. Okay. So Rodson, you're saying that can delta init be run multiple times for each data source? No. Delta init is only done one time, just once. The system will not even allow you to do double init. And we'll try that. So this is still loading, it's not done. I'll still leave it to run, and I'm gonna go back to attempt to create another init info package and see what the system will say. And this is an interview question, okay? They will ask you that, can you do initialization several times? The answer is no. You can only do initialization one time. And don't get confused. It doesn't mean that you cannot delete the initialization you've done and do it again. You can. When I mean one time, that means that you cannot, the way you can have two info packages, one for full, one for delta and all that. You can have two info packages for full, but you cannot have two info packages for initialization. My initialization is going there. Okay. You cannot have any, I cannot create another info package again and do full. Before I try that, you see we have full update over here already. That was Ken's initial info package. I'm going to create another info package and make it full, and you realize that the system will allow me to do that. So for full load, I can do so many info packages. But with init, you cannot. You can only do it one time. It's still on full. I will be able to save it, and it will be fine. The system is slow. Okay, so I've created 3 info packages. 2 of them are full. Kant's and mine are full, and 1 is initialization. Okay. Let me attempt to create a second initialization info package, and you've realized that I will not be able to do that. So if I do initialize delta process and I do save, it says that look at the warning. Init selection for field name currently running in this. Okay, this is not the message it's supposed to be. It's saying this because one is running. So that means that I have to delete it or pause it before I can even attempt. Okay, let me wait for it to finish and then you see what it was saying. It won't let me do it. Ken, is that how long yours took you to load? Let me check the time. How long it took you to load yours. Okay. Let's see the total hours or minutes it took you to run your loads. So the runtime is 1,287 minutes. What is that in hours? You started 23:02, February 23rd, 2013. Start time was 6:53. End time was 1,287 minutes after. How do I convert this into hours? 1,287. Into hours, it's going to be divided by 60, right? The mathematicians. Is that right? 21 hours? $21. Okay. This is extremely poor performance. Okay. It shouldn't take you 21 hours to just load 23,000 records. It should take you 5 minutes. At least 2 minutes, even 2 minutes. So if you're loading, you get this on the job a lot. It's taking you forever to load records in the thousands, it's not even millions. That means that something is wrong. Okay, your data packet size, it could be an issue or something, but we'll cover performance and you know how to deal with load performance if your loads are taking too long to run. So let's not worry about that. We'll cover that as a separate topic. So that clearly tells me that mine is not going to finish today. If it comes to 21 hours, I can expect mine to be the same. So anyway, just know that, Roxanne, to answer your question, you cannot do several inits. The system will not allow you, and you can try it on your own. It is not possible. Okay, initialization is only done one time. If for some reason you did not initialize rightly, or if you initialize and you realize that the data that came in is not right, so you want to blow it out and do re-init initialization again, what you have to do is that you have to go to RSA7 and delete that storage, that placeholder over there. Delete the init pointer. You can do it two ways. You can do it from your info package or from RSA7. Delete it. Once you're done deleting it, now you can re-initialize again. Okay, but until you delete the old initialization, because initialization is like a pointer, like Ikria said earlier on, it's a starting point. It's a reference point. So until you delete that reference point, you will not be able to do another reference point. You only need one reference point. You cannot have two. So until you delete the old one, you cannot have another one. Okay, so note that in your interviews. And you see that it's even grayed out. How do you delete the pointer? I'll show you how to do it from BW. But there are two ways. You can delete it from ECC. In ECC, you just go to RSA7, over here, Delta Q, highlight it, and then, do delete. Click on the delete button, and then it just deletes it for you. So when you delete this, what it means is that you've deleted a pointer. But be careful with deleting init pointers in RSA7 in your Delta Q, because it can cost you big time. You have to have a lot of understanding of what is going on, how deltas behave, and how you can lose data and all that for you to delete this. You don't just come here and delete it. Okay. In BW, to delete the delta pointer, you come over here to this top menu that says scheduler. Click on the scheduler and then choose this option that says initialization options for source system. Click it, and then when you click it, you highlight this line. So this is the line that shows in RSA7. Highlight it and delete it, and that will delete it. So when you do this, it deletes it from RSA7. You don't have to go back to RSA7 to delete it. When you delete from RSA7, it deletes it from BW as well. So it's either or. You have options, so you can choose. Okay, so once you're done with your initialization info package, you should be able to have another third option that says delta. Sometimes the system behaves very funny. Until the load is complete, you will not show the third option. Okay, but let's see if it will show for us. So we want to do delta. It's not showing because sometimes you need the load to complete before it will show. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes it will show regardless. Immediately you do initialization, whether it's successful or not, it will show the third option for you that says delta. So just understand that there are three update modes. There's a full, there's initialization, and there is delta. And repeating myself again, remember I said full updates will pick whatever is in the underlining table for you, which is a table of origin. So full updates will load history. It doesn't load changes. It doesn't load new records. Okay? And this part is where sometimes people get confused. Let me pull my Excel sheet and then try to make it clearer for you. Okay, so I have, over here I'm going to have, let me do table of origin. Okay, and then this is going to be your Delta Q RSA7. And remember that I said this only has history. And history is always with respect to time, right? If data came in a minute earlier, it can still be considered history. Data this very minute versus data a minute earlier means that this very minute is delta, a minute earlier is history. So don't confuse the two. Actually, let me just put delta. Okay, so initially Kofi bought something, it was 500. So the 500 will be captured over here. I'm going to just do Kofi. Okay, and then Equia bought something right this minute. So right this minute, it gets captured in two places. Right this minute, it gets captured over here. And it gets stored here as well, Equia. And then since you've done initialization, you have a placeholder. So it comes over here too. So Equia comes over here. Okay. As far as this is concerned, this is new. In RSA7, Equia is new because you've not pushed it into BW yet. Kofi is gone into BW. Equia is not gone. Okay. But as far as the table of origin is concerned, Equia is not now. Equia is come in, so it's history too. Because immediately after Equia came, there will be other records that will be coming in. So the other record, let's say after Equia can, also bought something. Okay, so can also comes in here as new. Okay, so as far as RSA7 is concerned, a query and can is new because it's not gone into BW yet. As far as underlining tables are concerned, these three are history. Okay, so even though to you, a query and a can, you've not loaded that yet, so it's new records, and something happens, and you delete initialization accidentally, so it wipes out a query and can, so your RSA7 is 0. You don't have any new records here, right? If you want to pull a query and can, you can only do that through full load. You can't get them through the delta again. Remember that delta only considers what entries come in there as new. Okay, so as far as RSA7 is concerned, you've deleted it, so there's no new record here. But in your mind, to you, it is a new record. But as far as RSA7 is concerned, there is no new record because you've deleted it. So there's no new record. How do you get in the new records? A query and can are in the table of origin. You can get them, but you cannot get a query and can with a delta info package because delta info package will only pick from RSA7. So if to you, you know that a query and can is new, you haven't loaded into BW. So to you, you think it's a new record. So you can use your delta info package to come pick them up. You will not be able to do that. Because as far as the table of origin is concerned, it is history. So the only two ways, the update modes that can make you pick a query and can again is by initialization or full. Okay, that is the only method, the only update method to pick up a query and can. You have the option. So let's say that you want to pick up a query and can, but you don't want to add Kofi because you've already loaded Kofi. What you do is you can do selective load. Okay, so you still use the full info package, but in your info package, you want to specify over here data selection tab, if this field was called customer or whatever, then you want to select Kofi. You put Kofi here and then Kofi Tuama or whatever. And usually it will not be names, right? Because you can have so many Kofis. It will be your customer number, customer ID. So you can pick customer ID 001 to 002 and just make sure that there is nothing between 001 and 002. Because if you give a value range, that means that if there is, so let's say PR is 003 and somebody else is 001 or can is 001, it can is 003, but there is another customer that is 002. So if you do the range, that means that you're saying that from 001 to 003, load these three customers. Meanwhile, you're not interested in 002. So be careful when you're using a range. When you want to just pick in Kofi, you want to just load can and a query. What you do is that you load them individually. So you put in can's ID in here. If it was the customer, this one says material number, so it will not make sense. If it says customer number, you will pull in 001 for a query, load it, and then create another info package, another full info package. Remember that the only way to do this is by full load. Okay, do another full info package, and in here you put in can's ID, and then it will load can for you. Okay, so I'm showing a lot of questions over here. Let me go over the questions. Let's see if we can get some answers. So Ken, you're saying that you have DSO flat file that is Delta enabled. Would you mind to use as an example? So the Delta enabled I'm talking about is always from the source. I'm talking about Delta enablement from the source to the PSA, not from the PSA onwards. From the PSA onwards, we'll talk about that, but that is very different. Okay, I'm talking about how to initialize deltas from the source. So DSO will not come in handy over here. Yes, if you are for loading a query in CAN, it's going to be 2 info packages. Full loads, yes. Any questions, guys, from here before I move on? Any confusions? I know these, it can get complex and very confusing sometimes, but let's, clarify all doubts before I move on again. You can unmute yourself if you are muted.
Okay, Eva.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so because I'm talking about the flat file actually, because I was trying to create one because if you want to do some changes on the ECC, it's very hard to do. So what I did is I have a flat file. Okay, so I use the info package, and that I load it as a I initialize it, and then
with a flat file.
Yes, actually
okay,
I
what is
changed
the
it.
name of your data source? Let me show it first. Okay. Is that a data source?
No, this is not data. No.
Yes, because usually flat file data sources, you cannot, because it's flat file, you cannot, most of them are full. Usually they are full. 99% of the time they will be full. So that's what I was saying, that the deltas I'm talking about is from the source to the PSA. In other words, from ECC to the PSA, not flat files. Because flat files, I mean, think about it. How can you make your flat file Delta enabled? It doesn't have any button to do that. From PSA onwards, DTPs are full. You can do full or you can do Delta, and those are very different. Those are not even complex at all. I can just take 2 minutes to explain that. But this is the part I really need you to understand, from ECC at least to the PSA. Okay, Ken, what did you say again? What is as data source? You said DSO is like data source? Ken?
Okay, you can hear me. If you go into my data source in the flat file area actually.
In the flat file area, okay. The system is very slow today.
Yeah, it is ongoing actually.
Okay, so your data source area, flat file.
Yeah, the flat file N, where it says NN, the last, the third one, the up, yeah.
This one? Okay. What's the name?
If you can go under just simply January 2013 class.
2013, okay.
And you say why can't? Why can't, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so you see this BW application component? Okay, so this one, you see the DSO, ZYKSD_002. Yeah, if you double click on it, yeah.
Okay. Okay, what do you want me to do? Click on the data source or the info package?
Yeah, actually, no. See, the first one I did it initialize, and the second one is I'm trying to do is a delta, actually.
Okay, so let me get in there, let's see. Because most times flat files will just give you full loads.
No, no, because if you change the, options, the type, you can use it. It's file 0, actually. There are 3 options.
So it gave you 3 options. Yeah, it's possible, but usually it's going to be full. Okay. So you did initialization, you did initialize. Okay.
Yes.
Where did you pick this? Let me see where your pointer was coming from. Was this coming from your desktop or from the server?
Yeah, it is from my desktop. The file is on my desktop.
Okay, let me see where the pointer is. Okay, so this is very good good point for you guys that will be doing interviews very soon. Especially if you start interviewing or you start putting your resume together, you're not going to say that you just came out of class fresh, right? So it would make sense if you know how previous versions used to behave. Okay, so in interviews, and they tell you that because in 3.5, this is 7.0, so this is a newer version. So you remember when I kept saying that SAP keeps bringing enhancement paths and they bring on new functionality. Previously, you see how CAD is showing you can show deltas and initialization and all that. In previous versions, you cannot. It would only do full load. So if somebody says that, just know that in previous versions, you couldn't have done that.
You see the extraction under extraction tab? You see a delta process.
This is coming from your local station. It's coming from your computer. Okay.
Yeah, so you see the delta process up there. I change it to file 0 delta with after image.
Yes.
Yeah, actually that's why.
Image. Okay. All
so,
right. So these are all new functionalities. These are all new functionalities with 7.3. Your system is 7.3. And sometimes, I mean, we'll do interview preparations and all that, but it's good to also know how older versions used to behave so that in case of interviews, you can distinguish between the two. Okay, so yeah, Ken, go ahead. Oh, so you wanted me to use this option to show the deltas, right?
Yes,
okay.
Actually,
okay,
yeah.
Thank you. That's very good. 6 hours is taking too long to load. Okay, so let me see what option you chose over here. So you have initialization. This is initialization. Which one is this? You are in it, right?
No, I'm not actually. Let me.
Who is user 17?
No, it's me actually. I'm out. Let me go log out and then.
That's fine. It's okay. You can still be in. So Ken has initialization info package 1, right? So let me attempt to create another one, and let's see what we'll get. And one assignment for you too. I mean, it's not very critical, but it will be when we start doing interview preparations. I want you to Google research on new, enhancements or functional changes between 7.0 and 7.3. Because most companies are still on 7.0. So if you have 7.3, it's very great. Because they would rather have somebody who is updated. But it's 7.3 came up not long ago. So if you've been in the field for a number of years, you should know how 7.0 used to behave. So Google on the differences and note a few changes that has come up. Okay, so I'm going to do the initialization again, and let's see what it says. So you see the pop-up. That was the pop-up I was looking for in mine, and it didn't show because I hadn't finished loading. So it says that delete init request before running init again with same selection. So that means that you cannot create it twice until you delete it. So this confirms what I said earlier on. And it's possible that SAP can come up with a new enhancement, and then it will make it possible. It will be possible to create two initializations. But until then, just know that you can only have one initialization. Okay, so let's go ahead and create a delta. I'm going to switch that to delta, a delta info package. So these are the three options I was talking about. We have full update, delta update, and then initialize delta process. What full and initialization have in common is that they all load history for you. So they all access the table of origin when you're dealing with ECC. What delta does is that it only pulls in the changes for you, and it only pulls from RSA7. It does not access the table of origin directly. Okay, so note the difference. All right, Ken, that's very good. It's good because I needed to show the three different options. Thank you. All right, so that covers it for deltas. Any other questions before I move on to the next chapter? Any confusions with deltas? Okay, so if there are no questions, can I ask you guys a question?
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay.
Yeah, my question is regarding this flat file. When you said that new changes are existing record changes, okay, when we do new edition, do you mean that it's we doing in the flat file, because I'm doing flat files so right now?
Okay.
Is it flat file or are we doing on the PSA?
Okay, PSA, remember that info packages will only get data into the PSA for you, right?
Okay.
Okay, and then the DTPs are what will pick up from the PSA to your target.
Okay.
Right? Okay, so just is the same concept. So what this means is that if you're doing delta, that means that you're only bringing in changes to wherever it's taking it to. And we know that info package is only taking it to the PSA. This says this target is connected. So you have data targets over here. You know, 3.7.3 has added new functionalities that I've not even taken good look. Let me open another one. Let's choose another data source from ECC and let's see if it shows data target. Okay, what was your generic? Do you remember the name of your generic data source? Can.
That generic you're talking about is Binars, it's not mine.
Yeah, I want to
ZBT,
compare
something
two
like that.
data
Actually.
sources from ECC and from flat file, so you see. Okay, it's this one. Okay, so you see the difference. This is from ECC. It doesn't have any data target as an option as a tab over here. That means that this will only take it to the PSA. But can enable delta for his flat file, and then it's showing another data target over here. So guys, you know what I want you guys to do? This is how to learn. And really, when you can visualize something, you practice it, it sticks better. Okay, I will do one example here, but I need you to do so many other examples. So this introduces another data target as another tab called data target. So that means that you can actually, I think, load this directly. Let me do a change here. Do you have a transformation between your data source and a DSO? Have you mapped them?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Everything is there.
Okay, it's mapped. So let's go back in here. And then in your extraction, let's change the delta process to only full. Reactivate, and you can switch this back later. And let's see if we still get that data target. And this is the only way to catch on all these little differences, how they all behave. Try and do different things and see how they behave.
Actually, I purchased a book from SAP Press. If anybody interested, I can give them the name. They can buy it. Actually, it's a hard copy.
Okay, what's the name of the book?
SAP.
Okay. Let me refresh it. Data target is still showing. Let's see if it shows. So it's 7.3. Okay, SAP Network WW 7.3 in addition. Okay, guys. So if you're interested, you can get that. Okay. So
Yes.
Okay. This in here is not checked. So it just went into the PSA, right? It didn't go straight to the. It didn't go to the DSO straight away, right? You still have to push it via DTP.
Okay.
No, I'm asking you. Did you notice that?
Yeah. That's what it's unchecked, actually.
Okay. So when I switched it back, you see it only showed you the full update. Okay, so try different things and see how differently it behaves. So with the delta, even though I switched off that, even when it was there, it only went into the PSA. So Cam, to answer your question, the delta actually only loads into the PSA. I was trying to test to see that can you actually change that, do something for it to just go straight to the target and get rid of the PSA? But no, it still has to hit the PSA first. So that means that when you do delta, then only the new changes will come into the PSA. But to know that for sure, you have to test it. Okay, that is the only way to show. That is the only way to know that. Okay, so we can do that right now. Okay, I can have you guys try it out, but I think you guys should try it out first. So let me switch it back for you. Did you try, so with your flat file, did you try to just add new records and then, load the delta and see how it behaved?
No, actually.
You didn't do that. So try that.
Yeah, actually, what I did is in the flat file itself, I changed something, company code and something like that.
Okay.
And actually, I was confused in this process between initialize and the delta. So I leave it there actually to half. So definitely I will do it later on.
Okay. All right, and that goes to everybody. So if you understand what we are saying, previously you cannot have a delta option for flat files, but 7.3 is added on that functionality where you can have that. So what I need you guys to try out is create a flat file, create a sheet, okay, a flat file sheet, a CSV sheet, and then put in a number of records. Load that into BW. Okay, make it, first of all, make it, the delta files, make it delta enabled. Load that into BW, and then go add about 2 or 3 more lines. And then this time around, just choose delta instead of initialization and see how many records will come. See if it will just bring in the new lines you added, or it's going to bring everything else again. Test it. When you test it and you can feel it, it will stick much better. I haven't personally tried that before, but if it's designed to behave the way ECC should behave, then it will just bring in the new lines for you. So let's try that out as an assignment, okay? All right, so we will take a break, but let me cover data source enhancement. We'll take a break, and then we'll come back to cover logistics, because logistics is huge. We definitely need a break for that. So data source enhancement is what I'm going to be covering right now. Who can tell me what an enhancement is?
Changes. You're enhancing your extractor basically.
You're enhancing your extractor. Okay, so what does it mean exactly?
For example, if you need to add some fields, say for example, you have a view, you have a table actually, and you create a view on it, and the table missing some fields, you need extra fields, and you want to have on that extractor some fields from another table, so you can append that fields into that view by using the table. So that is called enhancement.
Okay. Any other answers? Well, I haven't heard you talk today. What is an enhancement in your understanding? Well, are you probably on mute? Can you unmute yourself? Improving efficiency and effectiveness of an object process.
Hello. Okay. To make something more noticeable, to make it, to improve it, to bring it up.
Oh, God. To improve it, to bring it up. Okay. Any other answers? Okay, so where are you getting the, Paul, were you using logic to explain to me, or you got it from a book? I bet you use logic, and it makes sense because enhancement. What is really enhancement? You know, just like the word sounds, it's making something better, right? But that's good. If you can use that in interviews, you know, you can get past some of the things you don't know that you may be caught. So know when to use logic and when to use facts. Okay. So enhancement, when we say enhancement in SAP, all we mean is that, or all we are saying is that appending, and I'm using another big word, and I'll attempt to explain that too. How do you even spell append? Guys, how to spell append? Or it has an H? Okay. So appending a field or a number of fields to an extractor. That is all it means. So I can take your answer, actually making it better. As in, you know, it wasn't sufficient, so you want to make it more sufficient. Okay, so that is all enhancement is in BW. I mean in SAP. If they say enhance something, that means that whatever that thing you need to enhance, I mean the current state of that thing is not sufficient for your need. It's not enough to meet your need, meaning that it's probably short of fields. And we all know that in BW, info objects are the building blocks, okay, of everything. If you want to design a cube, a DSO, you know, it's all made up of info objects. In ECC as well, data sources are a group of fields that logically relate together, right? And we know fields relate to info objects in BW. So if you want to enhance an extractor in BW, that means that you want to add on a number of fields, you know, 1 or 2 fields to the extractor, because the fields are also the building blocks. Okay, why is enhancement necessary? Enhancement is necessary because oftentimes you see an extractor, okay, that has limited fields in them. And you want to add on more fields so you can report off those fields. But even though those fields are in the underlying table on which the extractor was built on, they are not in the extractor itself. So if you need those fields, the only way to get those fields into the extractor, to get those fields into BW, is to enhance the extractor. And I'll show you a couple of examples. So in ECC, Table Mara, you all know Table Mara, right? Table Mara is the material data source. Okay, meaning that there is a standard extractor on Table Mara. Okay, so can you ask me a question? Talking about standard extractor or generic? So I'm talking about standard extractor right now. It doesn't matter. I'm talking of all kinds of extractors. You can even enhance a generic data source. Okay, you can enhance that, but usually when we say enhancement, we refer to the standard extractor. That is what we refer to. So to answer your question, I would say it applies to both, but I'm talking about standard extractors right now.
Okay, Mike, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Okay, when we talk about generic, for example, say I'm using table Mara, but if I need a table, any field from say mark table, so I create a view by using Mara and mark. Is this a enhancement or is it just we create a view because we don't?
No.
It's not an enhancement.
Question. Yes, that's a very good question, but that is not. It is not an enhancement. Okay, so let me redefine enhancement again. So remember that if you need something from table Mara and table mark, it is not an enhancement because you are just merging them. You need there's no standard data source built on top of table Mara and mark. right? There is no extractor like that. Let's say there's no extractor. That is the only reason you are merging them. So you are really not enhancing anything because there is no extractor you're enhancing. You need all the two data, and there is no extractor for that. And you know that before you can get data into BW, you need an extractor. You need, it needs a vehicle to convey the data for you, and that vehicle is an extractor. So how do you get the data out? You have to create a generic extractor because there is no standard extractor. Okay, so people confuse the two. Do not. There is a difference between generic data source and enhancement. Generic data source only comes in handy when there is no standard extractor for you. That is when you do generic data source. Okay, enhancement comes in when you already have an extractor, whether generic or standard. And whatever fields in those extractors is not enough. So you want to add more fields to it. Does that differentiate the two?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. All right. So the enhancement is not generic data source. Okay. So let me take enhancement again. Enhancement is, and just if you see what I've written, it says that append a field or a number of fields to an extractor. So the extractor has to be existent. Without an extractor, you cannot even talk of enhancement. Okay, especially if you are doing data source enhancement. Some people do enhancement to tables, but that is not our job. It's not part of our job definition. Functional guys do that. We do not do that. Okay. So I'm going to go into Table Mara. This is Table Mara. You see the data in here? The standard data source. So every table, every standard table, right? No, I would say every. Most of the standard tables have standard extractors that extract that data already. And a typical example is Mara. Table Mara has its standard extractor. The name of the standard extractor for Table Mara is 0material_ATTR. Okay, and I'm going to find that for you right now. 0material_ATTR pulls the master data for you from Table Mara. And 0material_text will pull the text information for you. And then there are other hierarchy information. So we all know that master data is made up of attributes, text, and hierarchies, right? And they all have the underlining tables. So material attribute, this data source accesses Table Mara. Okay, but when you look in Table Mara, it has a total of 236 fields. Doesn't mean that all the fields are in the data source. No. SAP does that for certain reasons, for good reasons, I guess. Because not all the fields will be needed by every company to be reported upon. So they have all the fields there for you in the underlining tables. If you need them and it's not in the extractor, you can enhance the extractor and put it in. So let's find a good example. Let me go into the data source right now. And then you'd realize that the fields in the data source, and let's count it so we'll be sure. We know that under the underlining table, there are 236 fields. In the data source, there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. What did I even end the 19? Anyway, but I mean, just by glancing through, you know for sure that the fields are not in here. Will not even be up to 100. Okay, so there are more fields in the underlying table than there are over here. So let's say you want to report off, in your reporting requirements the manager gave you, they want a certain field. Let me see, called temperature conditions indicator. This field, and it's not in the extractor. that is in the underlying table. That means that you have to enhance that extractor for you to have that field. Let me check if it's there. If it's not there, we use that as a good one to do the enhancement. We started with 2. Okay, it's here. Not good. Let's see what is not there. Oh, the 82. I want to find a good one that is in the extractor. Medium. Probably medium will not be there. Let's see. And then remember that when you're enhancing an extractor, it doesn't have to be in the underlying table. So we all know that zero material underscore attribute, this extractor, its underlying table is table Mara. It does not mean that if you need to add a field, let's say in your reporting requirements, your manager wants you to add, they want to see vendor, which vendor supplies this material. So that means that they want to see a field called vendor in your report, but you don't have vendor in the underlying table, in table Mara. Vendor is in another table. You will be able to still enhance this extractor with a field that is in another table that is not in Mara. Okay, and we'll talk about all that. First of all, let's save medium. We have medium over here. Good. I don't show medium. Nice. Okay. So in table Mara, there is a field called medium. Okay. Your manager wants to see that field in material. In your standard extractor, medium is not a field in here. SAP did not put it in here. Does it mean that you are so screwed up? No. Thank God for enhancement. That means that you can use enhancement. You can enhance this extractor and make this field available in your extractor for you. Okay, so how do you do enhancement? First of all, you have to locate the extractor in RSA6. Okay, so let me come back to RSA6 again. So first of all, identify your enhancement need. Locate the extractor you want to enhance. Okay, highlight it, and then you click on this. There are several ways in doing it. I'll show you 2 ways. One way is click on the extractor, and then you click on this button that says that enhance extraction structure. You will click it, and then when you click it, over here, usually when it populates a name for you, that means that that extractor has not been enhanced before. Okay, if it does not show anything in here, if it doesn't give you a name, if it doesn't suggest any name for you, there's nothing in here at all, that means that you have enhanced it before. Okay, so if you want to enhance, you have to give it an append name. And the reason I said, when I was giving the description, I said that enhancement means that append a field or a number of fields to an extractor, is because that is the name SAP uses, append name. That means that the enhancement name. Okay, the whole thing you are appending, the name you want to give it before you even choose the field you want to append it. So let me give ZMAT append. What user am I using again over here? I thought I was logged in as, okay, let me get it. I probably logged in with instructor. Kofi, what are the details of that? Group A and back end. Okay, so I'm going to go back into RSA6. And during your enhancements, you get into RSA6. That is the transaction code. And of course, you already know that RSA6 is where you get all your activated data sources. Locate your extractor. Make sure it's highlighted. So we're going to work on zero material. Highlighted, and then you click on this enhance extraction structure. Give it a name. And remember I said that when it populates a name for you already, that means that this is the first time you're enhancing it. If it does not, and you have to give it a name, that means that you've already enhanced that extractor before. Okay, so you hit enter, and when you hit enter, over here, you go into the underlying table to get the details of the field you want to append. And we know that we're appending from the table Mara. And we said we needed a field called medium. Okay. So you choose the field name, you copy the field name, and then you put it over here. Let me give it a description first. So description is let's say medium append to zero material. So you give it the field name, and then the component type will be your data elements. So you see that sometimes you have your field name different from your data elements. Because field name says medium, it has an M. Data element does not have an M. Okay, so let's do different things. Let me take this out of here. And then put in the medium. So when you put in the medium, you realize that it doesn't populate anything for you. I think you're not seeing this. Let me get out and come back in again. So I'm starting from scratch again. So click on the enhancement, give it a name, and then over here you put in your field name over here. Okay, but watch something. If you put in the field name over here, then you hit enter. So asking for a description. Append. So you give it a field name, and you do this. It doesn't enter all the details for you. You see that you still have your data type and your description blank, right? No description, no data type. That means that the field name alone is not enough. You need your components. You need your data elements. So you have to choose the data elements. Most times they are the same. Sometimes they are different. So if they are different, you want to make sure that you put the right data element over here in component type. And then once you hit enter, it will have the data type, and then your description populate for you. Okay, so once you put in the field you are appending, you are done. If you want to append more fields, you can add more fields over here. And then the list goes on and on and on. Once you're done doing that, you activate. And then when you activate, this is another new topic. Okay, we'll talk about that later. It's called transport. Okay, so anytime you're making changes to something, the system records it so that you will be able to transport it into your quality system. Okay, so all this is saying that it assigns a package. You assign a package. You want to put this in. I'm not sure if you guys have a package. So I'll just do local object. And when we are trading transports, we'll talk about this. When you do local object, you just make that thing local. That means that you don't want to make it transportable. So it will just be in your system and you can transport it to another system. So you just activate it, and then it says warnings occurred. You can choose to show it or ignore it. But warning just says that it does not lie within the customer namespace. That is pretty normal. So you are done enhancing. So you go back, and usually when you enhance, it will come in hidden for you. The field will be hidden. So you have to get in there and then unhide it. Else it will still not show in BW even though you've enhanced it. So you see medium. Medium came in hidden. You see the hide field column. It has a check mark in there. It's hidden. So we want to come back in there, and it's greater because I was already in there. Okay, so if you want to do unhide it, you have to click change. When you do change, you can unhide it. So I'm going to find the medium, and then I'm going to unhide it. So you uncheck this and uncheck this too. The field that says that field only known in customer exit. Uncheck it and save it. And then once you save it, you're done enhancing it. So when you double click it, you realize that medium will be a part of the fields in the data source. Meaning that you can load that into BW and you can report of it. If there was nothing, there was no functionality called enhancement, you will not be able to have this field in BW as far as your standard data source is concerned. Okay, so you see that that is all there is to enhancement. So once you are done enhancing it and you want to do extraction checker, you would realize that medium will start populating data. Okay, and this is where I'm going to draw the distinction between enhancing something from a different table and then from another table. So let me locate my medium. Sometimes if there are too many fields for you and it's too hard to look through, you can just go in here and then change your layout. I'm the lazy type. I love to find things. So over here, I'm going to find medium. Because it wasn't displayed, and I'm going to pull it into the displayed columns. And then I'm going to put it on the top, the very top, so that I can easily see it. I want that to be the first field I see. So I'm going to move it up here. So I moved it up. So it's going to be the first thing that shows for me. So medium, it's over here, and it's not showing data because it doesn't have data in the table. So let's go into table Mara, and then let's find a material that has medium data, and then let's try to find that in the append. So if there is data in the underlining table in medium, that means that it has to show in RSA3. We don't need to write a code to populate that. Because anytime you're enhancing a field and the underlining table is the same table the extractor pulls from, you don't need to write any code to populate that data. Okay. So what I've done here, it means that I wanted to run data for anything that is not equal to blank for medium. So if something is not equal to blank, that means that it has to have some kind of entry. Okay, and it did not pull anything. It says that no table entry is found for specified field, meaning that in table Mara, medium doesn't have any data. So when you enhance it, it will not have any data. So it makes sense that we are not showing data in Mara. I mean in the append. Okay. I wish I chose a different field that had data. Let's see if Ade, what do you mean by that? You wanted
No, just same thing you said.
Okay.
Blank values.
Yeah. Right. That way you would appreciate that more, right? It would make more sense. So let's find another one. It's gonna have to find what is not. Okay, so let's check if this field is in the data source first. Because if it's in the data source, there's no need to append it, right? It says fashion grade. Fashion grade. Good. Fashion grade is not here, right? Nobody can see fashion grade. I don't show it. So next thing to do is let me check if it has data first. If it doesn't have data, then it's as good as the medium we just did. Okay, so I want to set the fashion grade to everything not equal to blank because it still doesn't have data. So that's not a good example. Created on. I think I've created on in the field. Let's see. Created on A, B, C, D, E. Okay, we do have created on. Name of person who created the object. ER is there. LVORM. Okay, we have LVORM. MA. Okay, I'm not getting anything that is not here. Anyway, so okay, so Ikea is saying that she saw some appends in the table. Are they the same or they are different? They are different. Remember I was saying that you can enhancements are, adding a field or two to an extractor. And you can also enhance a table. But that is not our job description. BW guys do not do that. The functional guys are the functional guys do that. So yes, you can enhance a table, but that is not BW, so we're not even going to cover that. Okay, so when they're enhancing their table, all it means is that you're also adding a number of fields to their table. So they also have to create an append structure and then add the fields, just like we would do our data sources. So it's the same thing, just that we don't do that. It's not part of our job to do that. Okay, so let me explain this real quick. We'll take a break and then I'll try to find a field that is populated so we can test it out and better appreciate it. So one pointer I want to give is so when you enhance an extractor, okay, and the field and the extractor are all going to be populated from the same table. They have one underlying table. There is no need for a code to populate the data. So when the enhanced field and the extractor pull data from the same underlying table, there is no need to write a code. Data will automatically populate in the append. And when I mean the append, I mean the enhanced field. Okay. You will, the second pointer, and we're going to do that too, you will need to write a code to populate data in an append that has a different underlying table from the extractor. Okay, and all that, it means that the field you're enhancing to the extractor pulls from a different table than what the extractor pulls from. So when you have a situation like that, you need to write a code, a program. You need to do some programming logic to populate the data, else the data will not populate. Okay, so on that note, let's take a 15 minutes break, and we'll come back to, I'll try to find a couple of examples. We'll come back and do it, and then we'll move on to the next topic. All right. How long are your breaks for usually? Is it 15 or 20? Kofi? 99 minutes? 99 minutes, like an hour and a half.
But we got only one break in last,
Yeah,
5
Eva.
sessions. We don't have breaks.
Eva.
I wouldn't have given you a break, but trust me, the next topic, you will be begging for break. So let's take a break so our minds will be fresh. And then once we have taken the break, I will try to find a couple of fields we can work on, so you can see that. All right, so let's do, Kofi, how many minutes?
Oh,
I thought Kofi just called me.
Yeah, I'm
All
here.
right, let's do 15.
Yeah, 15 minutes is fine.
Okay, let's do 15 minutes. We'll come back after 15.
All right.
Or a column for you. Okay, your instructor loves for me to show you pictures, PowerPoint pictures, so I have to show something so he doesn't scrutinize me. Okay, so I was able to find one example in plant. I didn't get any good example from Mara. So we're gonna go with plants right now. Let me make sure I'm logged into the right system here. Okay, so we're going to enhance plants master from the same underlying table, and then we'll see how it populates data. I typed in RSA1. You guys didn't tell me I was typing the wrong thing. Okay, this is so slow. Okay, RSA 6. Who was on this problem? I can't even see it up there. Yeah, this is not the right thing. I've logged in with too many users. I cannot even find the right user I got in. Okay, this is probably it. Okay, so we're gonna enhance plants. Let me get into the plant table. So this is the plant table. The table name is T001. Okay, and I'm going to show you the field we're going to enhance in a little bit. Okay, so if you get into the extractor, you realize that this field, ADRNR, is not in the extractor. It has data. I already checked. So when we go in there, and then I run it on anything that is not equal to blank, it populates data. So we're going to go ahead and enhance plants. You know, we've already been through the process, so I'll just quickly run through it. So did you see that? I did not have to type in an append name. That was what I was explaining to you earlier on. It was already, the name was already populated for me. That means that this has not been enhanced before. This is the first time it's being enhanced. Okay, so I'm going to continue. Oh no, I thought I was in the right, I used the right user. So it's asking for access because I think I logged in as an instructor. Let me log back out. I logged in as an instructor. Me, I don't have any users, so they cannot, they've not given me any priority access. Okay, so instructor.
Eva, you're still logging in as instructor. You should log in as Group A.
That is the problem. That is it. What is wrong with me today? Thank you. Okay. All right, I'm still logging as well. You know what? Let me just log everything out and just log in as. What is the user again?
Backend.
Backend. It's so weird. That's why I keep forgetting.
Group A is the user.
Group A is the user. Group A.
Back end is the password.
Backend is the password. Thank you. Okay. So we are all set now. So I'm going to go into the plant table. There's a table for plant. I'm going to open another session and get into the extractor. So 0 plants. So I'm appending this. Okay, so I'm going to click on this, and it's already populated for me because this is the first time it's been populated. And then the field I'm interested in enhancing is this field, AGRNR, this field right here. So I'm going to select the field name, put it in component, come back and choose the data elements, and you realize that it's the same, the data element is the same as the field name. Sometimes they are different, so you have to append. Okay, I'm going to hit enter. And then I'm going to choose local object because I'm not interested in saving it under a package for transport. Warnings, it's fine, we can ignore it. So go back, and remember I said when you enhance, the fields will come in hidden automatically. So if you forget to go back in there to unhide it, you cannot start jubilating here because it will still not show in BW. Okay, so this is what we enhance. I'm going to uncheck this and uncheck this as well, and then save it. Okay, so now I am going to do test extraction, and we expect to see data in the field we appended because they are all pulling from the same table. Okay, I just want to pull it to the top, so I'm going to find it as AGRNR. Okay, so when it's not showing technical names like that, you have to put in the description. So description says address. Okay, now it's displayed one hit. I'm going to move it all the way to the top so that will be the first thing to show. So as you see that it's populating so much data because there was data in the underlining table. I didn't have to write any above to populate the data. So this is the first scenario I was talking about. Yeah, this is the first one. And the second point, now let's quickly populate something else from a different table. Okay, so this is the first scenario. Second scenario is I'm going to go into plant, and then because I've enhanced it before, when I click this, we don't expect to show any name populated, right? Okay, let's go populate something that is not in plant from table Mara. I'm going to go away from this table and do Mara. And then let's say we want to pull in material. Okay, let's make sure material, this field is not in plant. I know it's not, but let's double check. Okay, so we didn't get any hits. So we know that this field is not in plant. So back to Mara. I want to append MATNA, which is the material number to the plant extractor. And we know that they all pull from different tables, right? So it'll be zero material or material append. No, it has to be a technical name. We'll do mat. Seriously? Am I an instructor? This is group A. Okay. So enhance extraction. Okay, great. So I'm gonna put in material, this field name over here, and the component type is the same thing. I'm gonna put it in component type, and then put in a description, material append. and then activate it. Do local object, and then continue. Okay, so I'm done doing that. I go back to check it. Remember that it will not, it won't come on hidden, so I have to unhide it first. So get into change mode, and then unhide material. So material. So guys, understand that any field that is hidden, if it has a hide field checked, it means that you will not have access to that field. You won't see that field in BW. Where is mine? Okay, here it is. So it's hidden. I'm going to unhide it. I'm going to do a save. And when I do a check, it's not supposed to show any data. Even though there is data in the underlining table, in table Mara for material. So let me go pull material to the top again. So we can easily see it. What was the definition? Material number. Interesting. Did I not hide it? Okay, we are not getting there. Okay, let's go back. Maximum. Okay, it's unhidden. This is material. Material number. Extraction checker. It's there, but it's not displaying anything. There it is. Okay, let's go to the right. Let's see who is showing anything. Okay, we just appended it, so we're supposed to see the append here. So guys, let's look through together. Okay, I'm not showing it here. Let me get out to the and come back in again. RSA3. So instead of going to RSA6, you can come to RSA3 directly as well. Okay. House number, PO box, blah, blah, blah. Okay, there we go. So this is it. Material. So this is the append. This is the enhancement. It has no data. It's not showing data because we need to write a code to populate the data. Okay. And I'll show you that the underlying table, table Mara, has data in material number. I'm going to go display the data in table Mara. Let's see, for Martina. Okay, so not equal to blank. Okay, you see mana? There's so much data in there that it's behaving exactly the way we expect it to behave. It's not supposed to populate any data until you write a code. How do you write a code? you go to, and the code is, if you're an ABAPer, you're a BW person, but you know ABAP, you can do it. You don't have to know ABAP to get a job or to be a BW consultant. So sometimes you find ABAPers on the job. And what they usually do is you will go to them and tell them, you give them the logic in populating material. Okay, so when you give them the logic, they will, go to wherever they need to go, and then they'll do their codes. But CMOD is the place to go to write the code. So you will need to write a code in CMOD. Okay, and CMOD is in ECC. That is a transaction writing that ABAP program. We're not going to go through that because we don't have to know that to get a job. We may do that in our projects when the class is over, or in the course of the project. Is there a standard way to present our logic to the ABAP developers? No. Yes and no. I wouldn't say there's a standard way. So Adewale is asking a question, and his question is, he wants to know if there's a standard way in presenting logic to the ABAPers to write the code. Sometimes it's as easy as going to their desk and just explaining the logic to them. Just telling them, hey, can you help me populate this field? The logic is, when you look at this plan number, look in table Mara, look at another field, and when this plan number in table Mara is exactly the same, go and pull its material number and populate it. That is logic. It could be as simple as just explaining it to them. Sometimes when you want to make it a little official or a little professional, you can send an email and put in the logic, the steps in there, and then just send it. So let's see how you can present the logic in writing. So in writing, you have to understand the logic, because you can't just write a code if you don't have logic, right? So how do you identify the logic? And before you can even read something from another table, there has to be something in common between them. If there's nothing in common, it's going to be hard to set the logic. So in table Mara, let's see what is common between Mara and the plants table. Okay, there's no word to look at. Okay, let's say that this is a good field. Usually client is it's not a reportable field. Nobody really cares for clients. It's just there to differentiate between the client line. But let's say that a common field between plants. So we are assuming that client is a real field, okay, that you can report of. So the common grounds between Mara and the plant table is MANDT. So your logic can be as simple as you saying that, so logic can be as simple as you saying that 1.1 is go to table Mara and find field MANDT. Okay, so in populating, so we are populating zero plants extracted. So you're giving a logic to the ABAP, and what you're telling the guy is that the ABAP is that he should go to table Mara and find this field, the client field. And then second pointer is when data in field MANDT is equal to data in field MANDT in this table, C001W, C001W, in the plant table. Okay. Pick that material number in that line and populate. We will refine the, the logic and populate. I'm just writing English right now. And populate the entry in the append in 0 plants underscore ATTR. So in effect, what you're saying is that there has to be commonality between them. So look into this table. You're populating plants, right? So look into the Mara table. And when you are in the Mara table, and then the client is 800. Okay, and then in the plant client, you go into plants. And then that client is also 800. Okay, that line, when the data matches in that line, because clients can be 500 over here and 800 in Mara. You don't have to choose that because we don't care for that. Okay, so when they are equal, then pick the material number, which is this 2, 3. Pick this number and then go to the append and populate it. So that's all the logic is saying. So you just want to write it in simple words, in good English, that somebody can read and understand what you want. So point 1, go to table Mara and find field this. When data in field this is equal to data in the same field in a different table, in the plant table, pick the material number, because the reason you are picking the material number is because you want to populate material, not MANDT. But you want to make sure that the material you are populating is exactly the same material that pertains to that plant number. That is why you are setting the logic. Pick that material number in that line and populate the entry in the append in 0 plant, blah, blah. And the adapter will just know what to do. He will go into CMOD and do a set of activities. And we will cover that in later topics. At least how to go through the CMOD, options, all the up to the point of writing the code. Okay, so that's all there is to data source enhancement. So if you see Evans's presentation over here, he has a data source and then the underlying table, and then these 3 fields needed to be enhanced. Okay, so first of all, you create the append. And when you create the append, then the fields, you populate the fields into the append. And that's really all there is to enhancing the data source. And I said I was going to show you another way in doing the enhancement. So besides the first way I showed you and just locating the extractor, and doing this enhanced extraction structure. When you do this, that means that you have to keep creating append. Okay, but let's say you want to, enhance 5 fields in just one append. Or let's say you want to enhance another field in plants. Okay, but this time around, you don't want to create another append. You want to just go put that field in the earlier append we created. What you can do is you double click in here, and then you come to extract structure right here. You double click it, and then you go find the append we did. The earlier append was material number append, right? We did the material append. We did this and we did that. So whichever one you want to go add to, you can choose either of the appends. So let's say I want to just go add another field to this append. So you double click it, you go into change mode, and then you add the fields. Whatever fields you want to add, you just add them. Add them. Add them. Okay, what you're doing is you're enhancing a number of fields in one append. So don't confuse the two. Append is just something you have to create to enable you to add the fields. Okay, you can create one append. It can be one append to one field, or it can be one append to a number of fields. You choose, it doesn't matter. All that matters is you are inputting the fields you need enhanced, okay, in an append structure. Okay, so that's all there is to data source enhancement. Any questions before we move to the next topic? Any questions, guys? Okay, if there are no questions, any questions?
Actually, I believe my question is there.
Your what?
I see there are more than one append for the same extractor. Is there
Yes,
the same, or is there any other, you know?
Yes, you can have more than one append for one extractor. Was that your question?
Yeah, so is there somebody else creating another append for the same extractor? Is it going to affect all the,
No.
you know, the reporting, or is the same?
It's the same. It will not. So what will happen is it's always good to use yours or an append you know. Because an append is really not, that is not the real enhancement, right? It's not, because the append is not field. Append, think of an append as organization. It helps, you know, organize your different enhancement needs. Okay, just like you need an info area to organize all your info providers, right? So think of an append like that. So let's say that different people are doing different enhancements to plan. Or let's say, you know, before you got on the job, so many people have worked on plans. Okay, so they all created their appends. And depending on what append it is, because you can be doing append from different places. You see how I named it? I did this as this append. This means that this append, I could have done same table append or plant append. And then this could be, I could have put the description, I could have given the table name as a description. So that differentiates where I was picking the fields from. Okay, it doesn't mean that when you're picking a field from a different table, you're enhancing from a different table, you cannot put it in another append that is also picking from different table. It doesn't mean that. It's just like you creating an info area. You'd rather have your info providers under your info area, right? You would not go put it under Kofi's info area or under Equia's info area. So that when you need all your info areas, you can easily go to yours and just find all of your info providers. It's just the same thing. It's just that, you know, the append comes in handy because you need an append for you to enhance, for you to add fields to extract. And without an append, you will not be able to. Okay, so you can just have one append and put in so many things, or you can choose to create one for yourself, even if there is one there already. Does that make sense?
So if we have, say for example, there are 3 appends, when we do, so it will show all in our data source, yes?
If you have 3 appends, remember that what is showing are going to be the fields in the append. So let's say that in this append I have 5 fields. 5 fields will show in the data source.
No, I'm not talking about one append, different append.
Then one field will show. If you have, so what will show in the data source are the fields, not the number of appends. Because you can have two appends with 10 fields, right? So in the data source, you're going to show 10 fields, extra fields enhanced. Let me go choose material. That'll probably be better because material was already, I think somebody had already uploaded it. So when I get into the extra structure of zero material, you realize that somebody else had an append before we created ours, right? This is an append, degree of fashion extension, meaning that this data is coming from fashion extension. That was the description the person chose to give it. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 appends. Do we need all these 6 appends? So the fields that were appended were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so 6 fields to 6 appends. Do we need all the 6 appends before we can have all the 6 fields enhanced? No. I could have easily, so I did this medium append, right? We did this. I could have easily put in this field, this medium field, in this append. In this append that was already created. I could have easily done that. And to show you that I can delete my append and then just go put it in somebody else's. It is possible.
No, my question is that, say for example, I created my append according to my requirement here, okay?
Okay.
But there are other appends. Say for example, I don't need it, but it will come into my data structure because of the other people they created, other
Yes.
fields.
Yes. If you append and you don't need it, it will show. Unless you don't know. If you can hide it, if you hide it, it will not show.
But it will
So
affect the other reports too, yeah?
Sorry?
It will affect other people too, if I hide it.
If the person needs it, yes, then the person will not have it. That means that the person will have to go and unhide it. If the person needs it, that means that you have to unhide it, right?
Oh, but in normal life, you don't have a lot of people working on the same thing, so.
Yes, in normal life you don't. You probably be the only BW person on there. And
Okay.
I take that back. I take that back. In normal life, because on my current project right now, we have 4 BW consultants. We are all working on the same thing. We are all aiming towards the same goal. Okay, but, okay, so we are working on towards the same goal, but you will we communicate between each other. So definitely you know what somebody is doing and what somebody is not. And remember that it totally depends on the client setting or the environment you are. Sometimes you can have a client where they assign you responsibilities and your responsibility will just be master data. Okay, or will
Okay,
be a
so it means
particular
that
functional area. So when that area is just your responsibility, that means that you will be the only person working on it. But when you get into an environment where anybody can just work on anything, you need to communicate between each other. And you will know because nobody really comes into the extra structure to see the appends that have been created. All they care about is they go into the data source. And if that field they want is there, even if they were not the people that put it there, if they want that field and it's hidden, they can unhide it. So they can have access to it.
so it means can you use the same field in different appends? Same field name?
No, you can't. It won't allow you.
Okay.
You can only have one field per append. So if I try to put medium, this medium in here into this append, let's try it. It will not let me because remember that all the data, all the fields come into this structure, and you cannot have the same field. Because if you append, that append comes into the structure, right? So if you pull in 2 fields into 2 different appends, right, the same field into 2 different appends, in effect, that means, in the background, it's just like saying that you want to input fields twice into the structure. It's not possible, right? Because it's the same field. So let me go into this append and try to put in the medium. It will not, it won't take it. It will tell me that it's already in the structure. So it was medium and then the component was medium. Okay. When I try to activate it, let's see what we get. Did you see that? It says errors. Errors occur when activating. When you refer to the log, it will tell you that it's already in the structure. Okay, it didn't give any detailed information, but that is the reason. So you cannot have the same fields in two different places. Because the end goal is they all sit in the structure. The append is just for organization. Okay, this is the main place that holds the fields. Is that clear?
Pretty much. Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions, guys? Okay, so if there are no questions, let me ask you questions on what we've covered so far. And let me, see how good we are. So let's say you got a job, okay, and one of the tasks that was assigned you is your manager came to you today and said that a record came in yesterday. Okay, but that record is not showing in the report. You loaded data yesterday, you loaded data today. Record came in yesterday. You are not getting that record in BW. For some reason, you missed that record in BW. What do you think you can do, or what do you think would be a possible reason why that data is missing in BW, even though you loaded data today? And how can you get that data into BW? Anybody?
I think you're talking this one about your delta, or?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think maybe by some reason something has been changed on your delta, or initialize has been not done properly. It's not.
Okay. So that means that when the delta came in yesterday, you probably did not initialize it properly, so you lost it.
Yeah.
Right? That is why it's not showing in BW, even though you've loaded data. So how do you get just that record into BW, just yesterday's record?
Just info package initialize.
Okay, so in the info package, what do you do?
Just go to info package and then hit initialize delta and schedule it.
Why do you want to do initialize? If you do initialize, remember that it's gonna, remember I said initialization will access the table of origin, right? So
Yeah.
it will pull everything for you.
You can go delta and then just schedule delta.
Okay, where will delta pick data from? Because
it's picked from the delta queue.
Okay, but that record is not there. That was why, even though you loaded today, it didn't come in. Because some reason, it got lost. Somebody probably deleted the initialization. So that data is lost from RSA7.
Okay, then
so
we have to do initialize with DTP actually, with the full data.
Okay, let me take the question again, and I need you to think through it carefully. Okay, I think you know the answer. It's a tricky question, but you know the answer, and I need you to think through it and give me the answer. Remember, I was saying that when you initialize, all it does is it just sets the placeholder in RSA7 for you, for your deltas to come in there. Okay, so when your delta is going to RSA7, some way something happens, then you delete that initialization, you delete that delta record. But thank God, when you are entering data, data goes in parallel. Like when changes come, they go into the table of origin, they will go into the delta queue as well, in parallel. So, you know, you have a backup record in your main, in the table of origin. Okay, so what I'm saying is that data that came into RSA7, what is it? It was a change yesterday. It came into RSA7. Okay, some way, somehow it got captured. Some way, somehow again, that data got deleted from RSA7. It never got into BW. So when you loaded data today, because it wasn't in BW, nothing came in. That record did not come into BW. But remember that that record, the backup of that record is also in the table of origin. How can you just pick just that record? You're only interested in that because table of origin will have lots of data as of whenever they started doing business. But you're only interested in yesterday's record. You could have gotten it from the Delta, but Delta got deleted, so you lost it. How can you get that data into BW?
I think you have to do a full
Open up. Right, so you will select it. So you will select this if you wanted to be able to have the option to specify what type of stock transfer to load. If you don't, oh sorry, I did hide. You will check the selection. If you check selection, that means that you will be able to specify. If you check material category, that means that it will show up in your info package over here. You see material category is not showing up over here, right? Because it wasn't checked. So let's say you want to be able to load just a certain type of material category. You will not be able to specify that because you haven't made it so. You haven't flagged the option to be able to select that. So there is no way to load material category, you know, certain types of material category. Your only option or the only choice you have is to load everything, all material categories that are available. You can't specify. If you want to be able to have the option to specify, you have to select this checkbox here so that it will show for you. You realize that everything that is showing in here, this is actually, this is Khan's generic extractor. Let me choose the zero material data source. And you realize that everything that is checked over here in selection, nothing is checked. So nothing will show over here. So this is zero material.